Welcome, Rick. Welcome to those who are joining. How's audio, video, connection, etc.? Welcome, Smoltz. I don't know if I know the name or not. Now that YouTube has changed the way the names display, I think sometimes it's hard to know. Do I know you as somebody as another name, or as your first time joining us, Smoltz? Ah, first time live. All right, welcome. Okay, let's get started. Hello, Shay. Welcome. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Virupakehi me mettang mettang era patehi me chabya putehi me mettang mettang kanha gotamakehi cha appadakehi me mettang mettang dvipadakehi me chatupadehi me mettang mettang bahupadehi me mamang apadako hingsi mamang hingsi dvipadako, mamang chatupado hingsi, mamang hingsi bahupado, sabbe satta, sabbe pana, sabbe bhuta chakevala, sabbe badrani pasantu makanchi papangagama. Appamano Buddho, Appamano Dhammo, Appamano Sangho, Pamanavananti, Siring Sapani, Ahi Vichika Sattapadi, Unanabi Sarabumusika, Katame Rakka, Katame Paritta, Patikang Hantu Bhutani, Sohang Namo Bhagavato, Namo Sattanang Samma Sambuddhanang. Protection from loving friendliness. There is metta from me for the Virupakas, for the Airapatas, there is metta from me. There is metta from me for the Chabyaputas, for the Kanha Gautamakas, there is metta from me. For me there is metta for those with no feet. For those with 2 feet there is metta from me. For me there is metta for those with 4 feet. For those with many feet there is metta for me. May those with no feet not hurt me. May those with 2 feet not hurt me. May those with 4 feet not hurt me. May those with many feet not hurt me. May all beings, all those with life, may all who have become, all in their entirety, may all see what is good. May suffering not come to anybody. Infinite is the Buddha, infinite is the Dhamma, infinite is the Sangha. Finite are creeping things, snakes, scorpions, centipedes, spiders, lizards, and rats. I have made the protection, I have made the safeguard. May the harmful beings depart. I pay homage to the Sublime One. I pay homage to the 7 Buddhas. All right. Welcome, friends. So now we will get into our meditation. So set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Whether you're sitting on a meditation cushion or a chair, posture is important, so we'll do a mindful scan of the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the head, Start by placing your focus and mindfulness on the feet. By placing focus, this means to focus in on any feeling or sensation that's arising when you investigate that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. Move up through the ankles into the calves. We do this practice for two reasons. The first is that it's a good intermediary practice between the activity and busyness of the day and the subtle practice of following the breath. We're slowly bringing ourselves from the external to the internal. And secondly, this allows us to understand our body and our posture in very deep ways that will allow us to sit for longer periods of time with less pain. So it's very important to do this practice before you sit, to set yourself up, give you the best conditions for sitting longer with less pain and problems. Move up through the knees into the thighs. What's the feeling of the thighs pressing against the cushion, the chair? Move up through to the hips and pelvis. The hips and pelvis are an important part of your posture, impacting both your lower body and the upper body as we're going up. So pay close attention to the angle of the pelvis and how your buttocks is sitting on the cushion or the chair, making sure things are level to minimize back pain and imbalance. Move up the spine. through the abdomen and the chest, checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching here or there, backwards, forwards. A slouching spine can constrict breathing and can also lead to back pain as you sit over time. Move up to the shoulders, make sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Down through to the elbows and hands. Observing how the position of the elbows and hands also impacts your spine and your posture in general. And finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning or slouching backwards or forwards, left or right. Chin parallel to the floor. When done correctly, each part of the body rests comfortably on the part below it. You don't need to force or put effort into keeping yourself in a certain posture. It's just a posture of stability and rest. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Your body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as the body breathes in and the body breathes out. As you're following your breath, your mind will become bored, seek to run away to the past or the future, across the world, into various stories and fantasies. Or an external distraction like a sound will arise. Your mind will become agitated and chase after it. Whenever this happens, you will be oblivious in thought worlds, lost to mindfulness. But eventually, it will slowly start to dawn on you that you have been taken away from the breath. When that dawning realization arises, then try to come back to full focus and mindfulness. Acknowledge that you have been taken away from the breath. Practice letting go of the distraction if it's still there by neither getting agitated and trying to push it away, nor by continuing to be excited and infatuated by it. See if you can do your best to let it go, to let it be, to give it no effort, energy, or attention. And then return to the breath. Whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. The breath is always there, doing its thing, ready for you to follow it towards a more calm and tranquil mind. The breath is home. Slowly open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, your body's position in it, reflecting on the state of your mind before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out. Welcome to Dee Dee and Jay and Tom and Lou. Welcome. So this is our first Dhammapalooza in a while, and what we do in Dhammapalooza is do a variety of Dhamma-related activities. We did some meditation. We did a little bit of chanting in the beginning, and now, most likely, we'll read a sutta. Usually when there's just a few of us online, there's not too many questions, and we just read suttas. But if you do have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. We left off with Majjhima Nikaya number 26. The noble quest, what the Buddha called the Arya Pariyesana. Right? So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning and, taking his bowl and robe, entered Savatthi for alms. Then several mendicants went up to the Venerable Ananda and said to him, "Reverend, it's been a long time since we've heard a Dhamma talk from the Buddha. It would be good if we got to hear a Dhamma talk from the Buddha." "Well then, reverends, go to the Brahmin Ramaka's hermitage. Hopefully you'll get to hear a Dhamma talk from the Buddha." "Yes, reverend," they replied. Then, after the meal, on his return from alms round, the Buddha addressed Ananda. "Come, Ananda, let's go to the stilt long house of Migara's mother in the Eastern monastery for the day's meditation." "Yes, sir," Ananda replied. So the Buddha went with Ananda to the Eastern monastery for the day's meditation. In the late afternoon, the Buddha came out of retreat and addressed Ananda. "Come, Ananda, let's go to the Eastern gate to bathe." "Yes, sir," Ananda replied. So the Buddha went with Ananda to the Eastern gate to bathe. When he had bathed and emerged from the water, he stood in one robe, drying his limbs. Then Ananda said to the Buddha, "Sir, the hermitage of the Brahmin Ramaka is nearby. It's so delightful, so lovely. Please visit it out of sympathy." Ananda, looking out for the other monastics who wanted to hear a Dhamma talk. The Buddha consented with silence. He went to the Brahmin Ramaka's hermitage. Now at that time, several mendicants were sitting together in the hermitage talking about the teaching. The Buddha stood outside the door, waiting for the talk to end. When he knew the talk had ended, he cleared his throat and knocked on the door panel. The mendicants opened the door for the Buddha, and he entered the hermitage, where he sat on the seat spread out and addressed the mendicants. "Mendicants, what were you sitting talking about just now? What conversation was left unfinished?" "Sir, our unfinished discussion on the teaching was about the Buddha himself, and when the Buddha arrived." "Good, mendicants. It's appropriate for gentlemen like you, who have gone forth out of faith from lay life to homelessness, to sit together and talk about the teachings. When you are sitting together, you should do one of two things: discuss the teachings or keep noble silence." So this is the Buddha giving a, basically setting a role or setting a example, right, for how monks should be, right? Either discussing the Dhamma or sitting in noble silence when they're together, right? So that, you don't break out in all kinds of yappy talk about all kinds of things other than the Dhamma. Mendicants, there are these two quests, the Arya Pariyesana and the Anarya Pariyesana, the noble quest and the ignoble quest. Maybe many of you have heard me talk often about how the Buddha called the Noble Eightfold Path, this path that leads to the ending of awakening, ending of suffering, is the Arya Pariyesana, the noble quest. So this is one of the suttas where the Buddha speaks on this. What is the ignoble quest? It's when someone who is themselves liable to be reborn seeks what is also liable to be reborn. Themselves liable to grow old, fall sick, die, sorrow, become corrupted, they seek what is also liable to these things. And what should be described as liable to be reborn? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants and cattle, and gold and currency are liable to be reborn. These attachments are liable to be reborn. So you notice here, this is not just talking about sentient beings, right? Mostly, but there's also gold and currency. It's talking about things that are impermanent. Seeking after things that are impermanent is ignoble. These attachments are liable to be reborn. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to being reborn, seeks what is also liable to be reborn. And what should be described as liable to grow old? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants and cattle, and gold and currency are liable to grow old. These attachments are liable to grow old. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to grow old, seeks what is liable to grow old. And what should be described as liable to fall sick? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, and elephants and cattle are liable to fall sick. These attachments are liable to fall sick. No gold and currency in that one. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to falling sick, sees what is also liable to fall sick. Just checking the chat real quick. And what should be described as liable to die? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants and cattle are liable to die. These attachments are liable to die. Subject to death. These attachments are liable to die. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to die, seeks what is also liable to die. And what should be described as liable to sorrow? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goat and sheep, chicken and pigs, elephants and cattle are liable to sorrow. These attachments are liable to sorrow. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to sorrow, seeks what is also liable to sorrow. And what should be described as liable to corruption? Partners and children, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants and cattle, and gold and currency, here comes gold and currency back, are liable to corruption. These attachments are liable to corruption. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to corruption, seeks what is also liable to corruption. This is the ignoble quest. All right, and so what is the noble quest? It's okay, Dee Dee, you can always watch this later. The video doesn't go away. What is the Ariyapariyesana? It's when someone who is themselves liable to be reborn, understanding the drawbacks, the dangers, and being liable to be reborn, seeks that which is free of rebirth, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, extinguishment, themselves liable to grow old, fall sick, die, sorrow, and become corrupted. Understanding the drawbacks to these things, they seek that which is free of old age, sickness, death, sorrow, corruption, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, extinguishment. This is said to be the noble quest. Mendicants, before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but intent on awakening, I too, being liable to be reborn, sought that which is also liable to be reborn. Myself liable to grow old, fall sick, die, sorrow, and become corrupted, I sought what is also liable to these things. So this is a very powerful admission by the Buddha. Right? Before he was awakened, he also was on the ignoble quest. Right? He sought these things. Himself liable to these things, he also sought them. Then it occurred to me, why do I, being liable to be reborn, grow old, fall sick, sorrow, die, and become corrupted, seek these things that have the same nature? Why don't I seek that which is free from rebirth, old age, sickness, death, sorrow, corruption, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, extinguishment? Sometime later, while still with pristine black hair, blessed with youth in the prime of life, though my mother and father wished it otherwise, weeping with tearful faces, I shaved off my hair and beard, dressed in ochre robes, and went forth from the lay life to homelessness. Once I had gone forth, I set out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. I approached Alara Kalama and said to him, Reverend Kalama, I wish to lead the spiritual life in this teaching and training. Alara Kalama replied, Stay, Venerable, this teaching is such that a sensible person can soon realize their own tradition with their own insight and live having achieved it. I quickly memorized that teaching. As far as lip recital and verbal repetition went, I spoke the doctrine of knowledge, the elder doctrine. I claimed to know and see, and so did others. Then it occurred to me, it is not solely by mere faith that Alara Kalama declares, I realize this teaching with my own insight and live having achieved it. Surely he meditates knowing and seeing this teaching. So I approached Alara Kalama, and I said to him, Reverend Kalama, to what extent do you say you've realized this teaching with your own insight? When I said this, he declared the dimension of nothingness. Then it occurred to me, it's not just Alara Kalama who has faith, energy, mindfulness, immersion, and wisdom. I too have these things. Why don't I make an effort to realize the same teaching that Alara Kalama says he has realized with his own insight? I quickly realized that teaching with my own insight and lived having achieved it. So I approached Alara Kalama and said to him, Reverend Kalama, is it up to this point that you realize this teaching with your own insight and declare having achieved it? I have, Reverend. I too, Reverend, have realized this teaching with my own insight up to this point and live having achieved it. We are fortunate, Reverend, so fortunate to see a venerable such as yourself as one of our spiritual companions. So the teaching that I've realized with my own insight and declared having achieved it, you've realized with your own insight and declare having achieved it. The teaching that you've realized with your own insight and dwell having achieved it, I've realized with my own insight and dwell having achieved it. So the teaching I know you know, and the teaching you know I know. I'm like you and you are like me. Come now, Reverend, we should both lead this community together. So we have Alara Kalama offering Buddha like joint leadership, joint teachership of this community. And that is how my tutor, Alara Kalama, placed me, his pupil, on the same position as him and honored me with high praise. Then it occurred to me, this teaching doesn't lead to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. It only leads as far as rebirth in the dimension of nothingness. So it should be understood here. Alara Kalama is a very skillful, highly trained, moral person. Right? There is no Alara Kalama is not a bad person. He doesn't know awakening. He doesn't know any. He's not awakened. But to get as far as he have gotten takes lots of training and practice and sila development. And this is why later on, I don't know, maybe even in the sutta, where the Buddha kind of laments after being awakened, he knew that Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta would instantly they'd become awakened just like that. And all he'd have to do is kind of give them a teaching. And they, because they were that close. But unfortunately, both died before the Buddha could come to them after he was awakened. Then it occurred to me, this teaching doesn't lead to disillusionment, to dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. It only leads as far as the rebirth of the dimension of nothingness. Realizing that this teaching was inadequate, I left disappointed. Why is it inadequate? Because it doesn't lead to the ending of samsara. It doesn't lead to the ending of suffering. That's why. Because that's the Buddha's goal. I set out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. I approached Uddaka, son of Rama, and said to him, Reverend, I wish to lead the spiritual life in this teaching and training. Uddaka replied, Stay, Venerable. This teaching is such that a sensible person can soon realize their own tradition with their own insight and live having achieved it. I quickly memorized that teaching. As far as lip recital and verbal repetition went, I spoke the doctrine of knowledge, the elder doctrine I claimed to know and see, and so did others. Then it occurred to me, it is not solely by mere faith that Rama declared, I realize this teaching with my own insight and live having achieved it. Surely he meditated knowing and seeing these teachings. So I approached Uddaka, son of Rama, and said to him, Reverend, to what extent did Rama say he realized this teaching with his own insight? So he's asking about not Uddaka, he's asking about Uddaka's father, Rama. When I said this, Uddaka, son of Rama, declared the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. Then it occurred to me, it's not just Rama who had faith, energy, mindfulness, immersion, and wisdom. I too have these things. Why don't I make an effort and realize the same teaching that Rama said he had realized with his own insight? I quickly realized that teaching with my own insight and lived having achieved it. So I approached Uddaka, son of Rama, and said to him, Reverend, had Rama realized this teaching with his own insight up to this point and declared having achieved it? He had, Reverend. I too have realized this teaching with my own insight up to this point, lived having achieved it. We are fortunate, Reverend, so very fortunate, to see a venerable such as yourself as one of our spiritual companions. So the teachings that Rama had realized with his own sight and declared having achieved it, you've realized with your own insight and declare and dwell having achieved it. The teaching that you've realized with your own insight and dwell having achieved it, Rama had realized with his own insight and dwelled having achieved it. So the teaching that Rama directly knew, you know, and the teaching you know, Rama directly knew. Rama was like you and you are like Rama. Come now, Reverend, you should lead this community. And that is how my spiritual companion, Uddaka, son of Rama, placed me in the position of tutor and honored me with high praise. So Uddaka not only made Buddha like equal, he said, oh, he has reached the level of my father. He should be the leader, right? Again, another skilled, wise, moral person. This is, again, these teachers are like top tier meditators, but what they knew is not what led to awakening. Then it occurred to me, this teaching doesn't lead to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. It only leads as far as rebirth in the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. Realizing this teaching was inadequate, I left disappointed. I set out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace, traveling stage by stage in the Magadan lands. I arrived at the town of Sena in Uruvela. There I saw a delightful park, a lovely grove, with flowing river that was clean and charming, with smooth banks, and nearby was a village to resort for alms. Then it occurred to me, this park is truly delightful, a lovely grove with flowing river that's clean and charming, with smooth banks, and nearby there is a village to resort to for alms. This is good enough for striving, for a gentleman wanting to strive. So I sat down there thinking, this is good enough for striving. And so, being myself liable to be reborn, understanding the drawbacks in being liable to be reborn, I sought that which is free of rebirth, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, extinguishment, and I found it. Being myself liable to grow old, fall sick, die, sorrow, and become corrupted, understanding the drawbacks in these things, I sought that which is free of old age, sickness, and death, sorrow, and corruption, the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, extinguishment, and I found it. Knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there will be no more future lives. Then it occurred to me, the principles I have discovered is deep, hard to see, hard to understand, peaceful, sublime, beyond the scope of logic, subtle, comprehensible to the astute, but people like clinging. They love it and enjoy it. It's hard for them to see this topic, that is, specific conditionality, paticca samuppada, dependent origination. It's also hard for them to see this topic, that is, the stilling of all activities, the letting go of all attachments, the ending of craving, fading away, cessation, and extinguishment. And if I were to teach this principle, others might not understand me, which would be very wearying and troublesome for me. And then these verses, which were neither supernaturally inspired nor learned before in the past, occurred to me. I've struggled hard to realize this. Enough with trying to explain it. Those mired in greed and hate can't really understand this teaching. It goes against the stream, subtle, deep, obscure, and very fine. Those besotted by greed cannot see, for they're shrouded in a mass of darkness. All right, so I think we're going to stop here. So we're coming up on 8, and I see our friend has joined us and has a question. I think we'll continue on with that later. Right. All right, Jay, good to see you. There probably won't be too much rest. I think I'll probably end up a little early today, but we'll see how it goes. We went a full hour, so that's good. Bante, is it true that being born prematurely and its after effects can be attributed to past life karma? Yeah. being born early, being born with various disabilities, being aborted in the womb, yeah, all of that is related to past life karma. Because what happens is how you are born, the conditions of your birth, is basically 100% your past life karma. Once you're born, then all other factors kind of come into play in addition to karma. You could be born, and you can be born to a wonderful family, and you're born healthy and such. And then you're coming home from the hospital, and there's a car smacks and kills the whole family, and that's it. Right? So there's other things at play. It's not always karma, but the Buddha is quite clear with basically the conditions of your birth are your karma. It's not something people want to hear, but it's because they kind of have a one life mindset. They think that the being coming in as a child is just they just came into existence right then and there. But no, every being has untold lifetimes of karma, of good and bad deeds. Right? So this is part of life in the samsaric state. I don't think I was born prematurely, but I was born quite sickly. I almost died as a fairly young, not like an infant, but within the first couple months, I almost died. And I had all kinds of issues with ear, nose, and throat, and allergies my whole life, and I couldn't, so I've had my own issues as well. I think a lot of people do. It's not, nobody's, grows up without any kind of something, whether great or small. But this is life in samsara. You don't expect everything to go smoothly, and then you'll do better. Tom asks, oh wait, did I? Tom asks, is there anything that happens that can't be attributed to past karma? Yeah, many things. The Buddha acknowledges this in a sutta. Not everything that happens to you is related to your karma. It could be a variety of different factors, and it also can be karma as well. It's only really like the conditions of your birth that are, the Buddha's basically straight up says is due to your karma. And you can see that in the greater and the lesser suttas on karma in the Majjhima Nikaya. Which, we just finished, I think, 25, so it's going to be a long time, a year or so or more, before we get to that in Dhammapalooza. But you can look those up in the Majjhima Nikaya, the long and the short discourses on karma, kamma, and you can read that yourself. But the Buddha says in a sutta, you could have a sickness due to bile, you could have environmental thing could kill you. Like there's lots of things that happen just because they happen. It's not always, everything is not due to your karma. That's a wrong perspective according to the early text. That's a common perspective and seen as a correct perspective in other traditions, like the Mahayana, in different places here and there. But in terms of the early texts, to say that everything that happens to you is due to karma is wrong. The Buddha categorically denies this. Does even ask that question? Does nothing happen to you because of your karma? Does everything happen to you because of your karma? You know, both are wrong. Both are wrong views. Rick, yeah, your energy, as your illness is, you're getting older and your illness is getting stronger, you have, you know what? As you get older, you have less energy, period. Let alone, adding on, the conditions that you find yourself in. And so you really have to, recognize that you have only so much energy and reflect on what you want to use that energy for. I only have such and such, amount of energy. What do I want to put that energy towards? You reflect, well, what am I wasting that energy on now? That's really not that important. And then with these reflections, you can, train in using the energy that you have in more skillful ways. Hello, Gregory. Welcome. So the Buddha's death from eating spoiled meat is not a result of his past karma, because that was a real bummer in my opinion. Well, not really. That's not the Buddha. The Buddha had already renounced the life force. To say that he died because of this meal is, it's not really true. It was just his last meal. It's not a bummer because the Buddha was on his way out. And he also, because the poor smith, Chunda, felt like mortified that happened. And he said, no, Chunda, there are 2 meals given to the Buddha that are the most meritorious. The first one was the girl who gave him the milk rice before his awakening. And the second one is what the blacksmith gave, the meal to the Buddha before his parinibbana. And so once Chunda heard that, he's like, okay, I don't feel so bad. So, was it a result of his past karma? Who knows? Probably not. Possibly. One way or the other. But like I said, the Buddha had already renounced the life force. He basically already announced that he had about 3 months before he was going to be gone. You can read this in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. So Buddha was going one way or the other. All right. I think we're good for today. So we'll continue on with the sutta next week. And let's see. You want to keep what? You want to keep your energy? I'm confused, Rick. Oh, dogs. Well, you know, in all honesty, if you really, if you really care about the dogs, it's one of those things you might have to let go because you know that you can't take care of them. Of course, there's the aspect of you're kind of afraid of being lonely, right? The dogs might provide you um, with some, companionship, some kind of other beings to be there. Uh, so this is a tough decision, but you have to really kind of investigate the reasons why you can let go. What would be the most skillful thing for those dogs? They are fellow beings in samsara. Maybe they'll be family members in your next life. Maybe they were family members of past lives. Who knows? Um, without carrying them for them, I feel like I have lost purpose. Well, maybe you can transfer that purpose onto the Dhamma. Spend the extra time you would have done taking care of the dogs on Dhamma-related activities. Maybe you can do some kind of volunteering, even maybe not leaving the house. I wonder if there's some kind of like hospice thing or whatever where you talk to people on Zoom, you know. There might be something, you never know what your purpose, might be. Sometimes you have to do that letting go and be in that uncomfortable space for that allows the next thing to come. And you wouldn't be able to get to that next thing without having let go first. Maybe whoever gets the dogs, you can ask, to send pictures or videos or whatever every once in a while, or come visit or something. No, I don't think it's weird. I think people, different people would have different perspectives on it. I think some people do feel, like it's almost like knowing a diagnosis, right? It's like, oh, okay, I know exactly what this is now. so I can just move on with dealing with it. You know, it's kind of like something like that. But you know, there is a danger to that, because you can't know everything that is related to your karma. You just can't. The Buddha said if you try to understand the full workings of karma, your head will explode. So who knows? Well, Gregory, that's up to the person and their read on their family. I mean, like you obviously have heard me say this before. I went to church even in Buddhist monk robes. I was okay with it. But if you don't want to go and you're okay, that's okay too. You say, listen, I'm not a fan of this. I'm not gonna, go. Hello, Chris. We're about to head out. Glad you made it at the end, though, at least. Rick is at a place of needing to let things go. In the end, you have to let everything go. You can't take anything with you. Everything has to be let go, whether you want to or not. You have to let it go. So you can let it go willingly and suffer less, or try to hold on to the bitter end and get separated anyway and suffer more. It's up to you. What should one consider when asked to participate in other religions? I mean, there's part of it that's like, if your family just does this, your family's always done this, is it really that hard to just do it with them? But there's also part of it is like, if they're using their religion kind of, as a wedge against you and things like that, then you have to set boundaries and say no. So it's like, it depends on the people, it depends on the situation, how you would handle it. It's all right. Let's share merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hantu sabbe pipanino, etavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva numodantil sabba sampati siddhya, Akasata Chabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anamoditva Charang Rakantu Sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. So I think we have come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. So Rick, if you come back on next week and give an update, see how you're doing, and you could always email me at any time if you need to. Same thing with everybody, obviously. So until next time, practice well and be well. And if I'm around, then should be here next weekend, next Monday for another morning monastery experience. So have a good week.